All right, everyone. So we're looking at a story here from WrestlingNews.co that is talking about the potential SmackDown move back to 2 hours. It's currently 3 hours. There's a potential it moves to 2 hours. So we're going to read this article. WWE's Friday Night SmackDown may continue its 3 hour broadcast format on the USA Network into early June. Contrary to previous expectations of the program reverting to a 2 hour runtime, according to recent industry reports. PW Insider reported this week that internal listings at the USA Network currently schedule Friday Night SmackDown for 3 hour episodes at the beginning of June. This development is notable as it diverges from what was understood to be the original plan for the show. Several months ago, WrestleVotes first reported that WWE had planned for SmackDown to return to its traditional 2 hour format in early summer, specifically around June. However, with the program reportedly still listed for 3 hours internally at USA Network as June approaches, it appears the anticipated reduction in length may be delayed or reconsidered, at least for the immediate future. A 3 hour SmackDown would keep its broadcast length consistent with WWE's Monday Night Raw program, also a 3 hour show. This extended format inherently allows for more in ring action, deeper storyline development, and broader roster utilization. However, some would argue that the show is better at 2 hours. So when I read this article, the first thing I thought was, oh God, please let this be something that might not happen in early June, but please let it happen. I just think that, and I love WWE, right? I love what we're seeing, but this is not something that I feel personally that we should be wanting it to remain at 3 hours. And it's not because, I don't want to see some of the mid card talent get their chance. I think there's always room for that, and a lot of them put on really good stuff. I just feel the product, it could be so great at 2 hours. I think people even mention this like when we talk about WrestleMania or some of these pay-per-views that have gone to two shows. I just think people look at it from the standpoint of, okay, we're going to two shows. And so now you have to fill so much more time. You have to fill so much more time. And it's just really, I think it takes away from the excitement of turning it on and hey, it's a 2 hour show. Like even Raw, now that Raw, it's kind of, it doesn't have a set time, but really they've kind of hit the sweet spot of like 2.5 hours. I think it's gotten much better than say a 3 hour show. I think when you have a set time of it's going to be 3 hours, it just feels like there's a lot of segments that it's not that they're bad, but it's like you don't really need it on there. Why make people watch like, okay, I'm waiting for the main event or I'm having to get through this part so I can get to the next part. Like, why do that to people? When you could just put on a good show for 2 hours, and I think it should go to 2 hours. I really do, and it is a little bit frustrating in the sense of I understand there's a lot of wrestlers out there, especially when you have this talented of a roster. There's a lot of wrestlers out there who just aren't getting their shot, and I completely get that, and it's probably frustrating for them, and they probably love it being 3 hours so they get on TV. I just don't think it helps when you kind of say, okay, we're going to make it 3 hours so we get kind of people who don't get, a ton of time, some time on TV. And then you put them into a rivalry or a match that people are like, okay, that was a good match or that was okay, but they're not all that excited about it and they're waiting for what they, want to be seeing. They're just waiting for that match to be over in a sense. And I don't think that helps them, right? I don't think that makes people go, "Oh, I'm happy they got that. Now I'm excited that they're on TV." It's like, no, in a lot of ways, people actually get upset over that, right? And they start losing interest in some of the stars because you didn't put together a proper storyline. You could get creative even within a 2 hour format. You just have to not have things that run too long. You can have a promo within the 2 hour thing instead of having a full match, or you could have whatever it is, or have them part of a bigger faction. Like there's so much you could do, right? There's so much you could do rather than have to extend time. I just don't think it helps the stars overall, but we'll see what they do. This is really one of those nitpick things, right? Where it's not the end of the world. It's not, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my God, this is, the worst decision WWE has made, and I'm not going to be watching SmackDown because of it. I just think it's a really good idea to cut down to 2 hours and to only put kind of the best out there. In my opinion, I think that's the best way to go about it. But I would love to hear what other people think because I also kind of understand that as someone who, creates content surrounding wrestling, that Maybe it's just a little bit more frustrating for me because I'm like, okay, I just want to be able to look at the stuff that I could, like I'm enjoying and I think is meaningful and create content. Maybe your average viewer, maybe they're like, no, I actually love just having wrestling on for 3 hours and to be able to watch that as I'm doing stuff. And I don't really mind if there's a match in between that might not be as exciting as the main event because I want to just watch it. And if that's the case, then WWE is doing exactly what they should be doing, keeping it this way, right? Because WWE should not be looking to me to be saying, well, you would prefer 2 hours. They should be looking to, the vast majority of fans. Like, what do the fans want? Do they like it this way? Do they like it the other way? That's what they have to figure out, and if there's data that shows people kind of leave in the middle of SmackDown and come back for the end of SmackDown, or you have a survey, almost like a focus group of people that say, yeah, we kind of, we go to the bathroom or we go do our laundry during that middle part and we come back for the end. If that's the case, then make it a product. You don't always have to try to, like get every little thing. Like we need to have as long of a show as possible, and every little thing we can get out of somebody, we're going to do it, right? If we can have a 2 day show, we're going to have a 2 day show. Sometimes leave people wanting a little more. And I don't hate the 2 day shows, but even this year's WrestleMania, which I thought was phenomenal. You could have put all of the big, big moments of that into one show, and it would have been one of the best WrestleManias of all time, maybe, right? Like that's the kind of stuff I think that frustrates people. Is they're like, you're kind of diluting part of it. But once again, this is a complete nitpick. This is not something that I'm like, actually upset about. I just think this raises an interesting point. And the last thing I'll say is one thing that also scares me is that right now WWE is kind of in a golden age in a sense because they just have so much talent. I mean, even this is like kind of like the Attitude Era where during the Attitude Era, even the mid card guys, right? Even some of the jobbers were like big, they're like, oh, these guys rock. WWE is kind of in that point now. I mean, you go down the roster and you just love everybody. I mean, there's just so much talent. I mean, think about on the women's side here, the mid card title holders. And I know Zelina Vega is now champion, but Chelsea Green, Zelina Vega will bring her up too. She's, great. Lyra. I mean, think about that's on the women's side, right? You just have great mid card champions. You go from Chelsea Green, who fans loved and everybody wanted to see her on TV, to Zelina Vega. Everybody's happy for winning her first championship in WWE, and fans are, behind her title reign. Lyra, people love that. And these are mid card championships that people do love. But what happens down the line when WWE goes through one of those patches of, okay, you don't have that deep of a roster and you just kind of have your top guys, your top wrestlers and your top ones on the women's side, and you don't have that kind of mid card depth on either side of the roster. What happens then? And now you're going to just kind of be showing like, okay, well, we're going to make WrestleMania one show again. We're going to make SummerSlam one show again, or whatever it is. I don't even know. I don't remember if SummerSlam is now two shows, but you get my point, right? You're understanding what I'm saying is that you're not going to have this talented of a roster, this deep of a roster forever. Because sometimes you're going through a time of, okay, we got to build them. So I just hope WWE doesn't run into that. But put in the comment section below what you think about this, and we'll see you next time.